First I'll put a little bit of grease on that, under that retainer plate. You can see where there's always bright marks where it's been rubbing. Make sure you've got your grease there. You don't need much, you only need a tiny smear. Let's pop that grease to one side. Four black countersunk head screws are wanted here to hold this together. Here I've made sure that the inner helical is pushed forward of the outer helical. That way you'll have no trouble getting things to work. If you let the inner helical push back behind the outer helical, in fact sit lower, if you did that and did these screws up, you'll find that you'll have locked things up. Nothing will want to move because you'll be trying to force it back beyond where it can go. There's our 4 screws done up. They're only loosely done up. Check that this moves. It does. Do those 4 screws up tight. Check that it moves. Still moves freely. That's ideal. That's what we want. Bring back in the body, drop the focus mount in place. It's held into the body with 4 nickel plated screws. Now remind me not to pull the front right back out yet because I haven't put my shutter release in. And it's important that I do something else before I do that. Get these 4 screws in place. These 4 screws hold the focus mount to the front standard. The nickel plated screws, round heads. Get them all started. Once they're all started, you can tighten them up. There are 4 black, longer black screws, round heads, that pass through the other 4 holes here. They pass right through the focus mount, right through the front standard, and they hold the bellows to the back of the front standard. So I'll get those in position, run those screws down. When they're all running nicely, tighten them up. Don't need to go crazy. Now my shutter release shaft, I need to put that in before I get into trouble. The shutter release shaft needs to be lubricated with a bit of molybdenum paste. Now some of these cameras will have a return spring on them, some of them will not. Some of them should have had a return spring on them, but it's been lost. This one doesn't have one. I'm not too concerned about that. I've got that sitting in place, and now it stops this arm from falling out while it's in place. So I can extend the front, and I want to put a rubber band on here to hold that shutter release from getting away. I don't want that shaft falling out while I'm playing with the camera. Otherwise, if that comes out, then this piece can fall in and it'll go down behind the bellows, and I'll have to pull the whole front out in order to get it back out. So there we go, that's all working nicely. Our focus scale ring can go on here now, and I've got my alignment marks on there. They're easily seen, so that's good. There are 4 small screws hold that in position. If you had forgotten to make alignment marks when you were taking the camera apart, you can often get by just by looking to see where the screw heads have scarred the focus scale ring. In this case they haven't scarred the focus scale ring, so we'd be buggered, but generally speaking you can see where the screws have been tightened down a bit too much and they've bitten into the focus scale ring, and you can use that as a guide to where the focus scale ring probably sat. We've got 4 screws here. Checking that the alignment has remained good. Nip those 4 screws up. Don't over tighten them. If you over tighten them, the action will just stiffen up. It won't move smoothly at all. So we have the pinion here that drives the curved rack on the shutter. I'll just put a bit of synthetic grease on that. That couples to the shaft coming through from the back of the camera. That's correct. It's just sitting there now. I wondered why it had stopped turning, but of course there's a cocking rack on the other end of it, so it can't turn. Drop that cover in position. There are 2 chrome screws. If you've made a mess of one of the chrome screws, make this your good chrome screw, the one at the top that you can see easily. And make this one your ugly chrome screw, because no one can see down there. But I haven't made a mess of it, so we're in credit. Check that that moves smoothly. That's moving nicely. And then we've got our coupling here. It couples the rangefinder at the top of the camera. Now at the moment this is quite stiff there because that joint there is entirely dry. It's got no lubricant at all and it's riveted. So I need to put a drop of oil on there, and a drop is all it takes. Well, I can't find the oil container I was looking for, but this will do. This is some watch oil. If I can get a decent sized dob of it on here, I'll just pop that on there. This is where the man says, and I'll just lubricate this with a drop of Mobius 9010. It only takes a drop and it soon works its way in, and it means that that joint is now lubricated and won't be stiff. If it's left entirely dry, it actually is quite stiff. The action doesn't move smoothly at all. That's good. So I'll put that in place. Got to get this arm down in the body. It's always a little bit reluctant. And that's close enough. I can see the top of it. It's held in with 2 very small screws to the front of the inner helical. And 1 screw at the top. Let's just unhook that for a second, and no more than a second. 1 screw at the top here. I've just got to push that across to slide my rule in there. I can just see the edge of that and get that in place. And there's a shouldered screw that goes up at the top here, and that acts against the arm on the rangefinder. So get that in there. Do that up tight. Put a wipe of synthetic grease in that track, and that moves backwards and forwards as you shift the focus scale ring, and that's what acts on the rangefinder to move the arm. That is good. Now let me put my little rubber band back on there so that I don't have any problems. I want to get the door on the front of this camera because that's really the next thing to go on here. Oh, will you look at that. I was looking for that chrome trim and I couldn't find it anywhere. I used another one. Doesn't matter. Here's our arm. Get that dust off there. In fact, these doors are often a little bit bent. They're very thin die cast. You can see it's got a bit of a hollow in here and here. That's from people grabbing at it. That's usually not a major problem. I'm just checking the state of this to see if it's okay. Those arms are probably bent out slightly. Just give them a little tweak inwards. No more than that. Take my synthetic grease and some in that slot there at the top and some in that slot in the bottom. Get the door in position. Start with it this way and swing it into the body cavity. Now here we were missing one screw and we had a foreigner in there, didn't we? You had this ugly great screw here instead of this one here. So we need to find a correct screw to go in there, and there were shim washers to go in. 1, 2. Possibly there should have been a third shim washer because it had lost its original screw from the bottom of the door. It's a very reasonable, good chance that it had lost a washer there at the same time. I need to find a replacement for that screw, because we don't want that one in there. Now typically there'd be a thicker washer at the top of the door and 1 or 2 washers at the bottom of the door. Now I'm looking through my parts, I'm not finding a thicker washer. So I might need to put 2 of the thin washers at the top. Is that one? No. I just don't have one. So I'll put 2 washers at the top. Now we know 2 washers came from the top because there was a missing screw from the bottom that had been replaced. So I'll get that on there. Basically I'll just slide that into the hinge area. And get 1 screw through there. At the bottom of the door, let's try 1 washer and see how that feels. And put the screw in place. This is a replacement, exactly the same as what would have been there originally. Oh, look at that, that's stripped out of the door, it flaming is. Okay, well that replacement screw that had been used was the wrong size thread, so it's stripped out in the door. Okay, that complicates things somewhat. What I'll have to do, if I can't find a suitable screw, is use this ugly replacement that had been used previously and cut it down. I'll have to reduce the length of it and cut a new slot in it because it was too long to do the job. That is a bit of a disaster. I could have done without that. Undo these screws. Ooh. Fun and games. Now got to get that screw out, which of course doesn't want to come out because it's not biting on anything. I'll be back when I've sorted it. Alright, there's the original screw, and here's the other replacement screw that I've cut down in length and re-slotted. So hopefully that'll do the job. I'll swing the door into place and show you the result. Well, that's all in. There's screws there, it's below the height of the leatherette. It's got sufficient washers in there to take the play out of the door, so that's all smooth. So, what happened there, what's its history, is anyone's guess. Whether the original screw just simply worked its way out and was lost, whether somebody over tightened it when they were putting the camera back together and stripped it out, then had to use a bigger screw, I don't know. That's going to be a bit of a mystery for us, I think. Never mind. I want to get the leatherette on the base of the camera at this stage, I think. So I'll remove the film advance lever. I'll give the base a quick wipe with some naphtha to remove any greasy fingerprints because the camera's had a lot of handling. Our leatherette is here, and I'll clean the base of that with a bit of naphtha. I don't think this needs scraping down any. We've got that hole there. I want to cut that out now while I've got the opportunity. I'm going to put a patch in there. So I've cut that patch out. And I will need my adhesive. Got some adhesive here. It's enough to start off with, and I'll manoeuvre that about using a toothpick to try and get an even coverage of adhesive on there. Now I need a little drop more than that, I think. I'll just pop some here on the paper and transfer that over. A bit light over here. That I think will do it. Now here I've got that break in the leatherette. I want to make sure that it fits down neatly over that break so that the broken piece of leatherette fits keys directly back into the hole and becomes invisible. And it is invisible because I can't see it. It's here somewhere. I can just see a surface break there. There's a thread of adhesive just there. Yeah, you'd have to know that was there to find it. that looks good. Put my shutter release lever back on. I mean my film advance lever rather. And I better cut a patch for this. Oh, I can see we're well in focus, aren't we? What a bloody useless video camera this thing turned out to be. And wake up, camera. I was thinking about it. Here we go. You can see there I've got to cut out a patch to cover that spot there. And that's what I'm going away to do.